Well, hello lovely humans, welcome back to my channel into part one of the long-awaited Make Ahead meals. I am channeling my inner acre homestead in today's episode. I don't know why I called it an episode, but we are gonna put together two casseroles. Wait, don't leave, okay? Don't panic because I just said casseroles. These are, when prepared correctly, some of the simplest, easiest, most nutrient-dense meals you can throw together ahead of time and have ready for whenever you need them, whether you've got a baby coming or a busy season of life coming up ahead of you. I made a bunch of these. And I mean a bunch of them before our fourth baby arrived because I didn't want to be standing on my feet postpartum. I wanted to be really simple for my family to be able to feed us without involving me as much as possible and hitting as many of the important nutrients that we needed. So in today's video, we're gonna be making two of my favorites of all time, and that is enchiladas and lasagna. And by cutting a few corners and giving ourselves a little bit of grace and not doing absolutely everything from scratch, but still making sure we're picking quality ingredients, you're gonna find that combined with maybe some beans and rice for the enchiladas and maybe a salad and bread with the lasagna, you will have a complete meal hitting all of the important components that you need to have. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. The first meal in our lineup is the easiest enchiladas you've ever seen in your entire life. In fact, I kind of feel like this is cheating with how simple these are, but I am doing two 9x13 trays, and I've got my tortilla warmer sleeve thing handy. Most of the enchilada recipes I see online only call for 1 can of sauce, but we like ours extra saucy, so we use about 1.5 to 2 cans per tray. Now, frankly, I don't think it matters whether you get white or yellow corn, but I do think that the corn tortillas stand up structure-wise a lot better than flour tortillas when doing a freezer make-ahead meal, simply because I feel like the flour ones get a little bit more mushy. I might be wrong, but I feel like that's the case. I found that with a 9x13, I can fit about 12 enchiladas per tray. So I'm just gonna toss them into my little tortilla warmer sleeve and pop that on into the microwave. It seems like a bizarre added step, but by warming them up like this, it makes them easier to roll and therefore the tortilla is less likely to break. Now there's a whole variety of options that you could put inside of the enchiladas. I typically will do a shredded chicken. This is a great option if you want to debone and get rid of the rest of that meat on that rotisserie chicken you picked up from the grocery store, or you can cook up chicken specifically for this or do just cheese enchiladas. But for the sake of today's recipe, I'm using pre-cooked chicken already pulled off the bone, ready to go in these handy bags. And I found that about 16 ounces of protein per tray was like the perfect amount for us. We probably could have done a little bit more, but again, I'm trying to stretch out our protein and stretch out our meals just enough. Additionally, I also have prepared some diced onions for a little bit of crunch, and I'd say about 4 cups of cheese pre-shredded in this bag, so it's gonna be about 2 cups per tray. Now this is where I pull an Oz and show you how simple this recipe truly is. Pulling back the curtain on this. You are going to empty out your enchilada sauces into a bowl or some sort of, I mean, I've done it with a plate before, but I prefer something with higher sides. And as you can see here, I'm combining 2 mild cans with 1 medium can just to give it a little bit more of a kick, but not to make it so intense that the kids can't enjoy it. And I know you can make your own enchilada sauce, I know that. But if you're growing a human, or if you're going through a busy season of life, just buy the stinking sauce, okay? You can explore it, making your own enchilada sauce at another time in life, right? But if we're doing a make-ahead meal, let's make this as simple as possible because you're already gonna be making your kitchen a mess, right? We're already gonna be causing disaster in here. So let's make sure we're keeping it as simple as we can. Your hands are about to get messy. So make sure you've got your assembly line structured in such a way that you are ready to go because you're gonna get sauce on your fingers in T-minus 20 seconds. Notice I've already poured some of the sauce in with the chicken. I found that if I don't do this in the past, the chicken almost stays a little bit dry encased in the tortilla, in the actual enchilada itself. So I like pouring a little bit over the chicken before I start assembling. And here's where I get a little ahead of myself. I start assembling my very first enchilada and then realize I forgot a key step. I always like to put a 1/4 cup of sauce on the bottom of it. It, to me, 1, again, makes everything just a little bit more juicy, and 2, makes it so the enchiladas don't actually end up sticking to the pan. Is this accurate? Is this true? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I feel like it helps. And I know it definitely helps moisture-wise. I've got my base layer in place. I've got my first enchilada assembled. So I'm gonna curl it up and lay it seam side down. It keeps it from, you know, falling apart as you're throwing the other enchiladas in. So I'll show you one more time, a little bit more slowly, the assemble of a single enchilada. We dip the tortilla in, cover both sides, add the protein, add cheese, add a little bit of chopped onion if you want that as well. You can add a whole myriad of toppings in with this. It really is, the sky is the limit on this. I like to keep ours pretty simple though, because it makes the assembly line just a little bit shorter, especially when I'm doing a make-ahead. This is already complicated, right? Like I'm already making 2 meals in one sitting. I don't need to get super fancy with it. I actually really hate that there's always a little gap left over, so I will usually just tuck a little bit of cheese, a little bit of protein, you know, the toppings where an enchilada won't fit, and just kind of finish off the rest of the tray. Could I leave it empty? Yeah, I could. But I feel like this really rounds out the entire experience, you know? For what I said about having messy fingers in this is why having your ingredients prepped and ready to go before you even get started is of the utmost importance. Wear an apron. Sometimes if you get the wrong kind of enchilada sauce, it'll completely stain any outfit that you're wearing. So protect yourself, protect your kitchen, and make sure to have this ready to go ahead of time so you don't have to stop mid-assembly and start shredding some more cheese or cutting up more chicken. Once both of my trays are totally full with enchiladas, I'm gonna take the remaining sauce and spoon it over the top evenly between the two. This is where, as a home cook, I don't measure. Like, I tried to for the sake of the video to give you something to go off of, but I just grabbed a 1/4 cup measuring cup and just went back and forth between the two until the sauce was completely gone. Then you finish up each tray by topping off with about a cup of cheese. You can use Monterey Jack for this. I actually don't think I mentioned the type of cheese. Monterey Jack, you could use pepper jack, you could use, gosh, there's probably a whole myriad of Mexican cheeses that would be fantastic on this. I'm using raw cheddar because it's what I had on hand, and personally, we find it delicious. We buy it in 5-pound blocks from Azure Standard. You guys know we are a huge fan of Azure Standard. If you want to check them out, I will leave them in the description box below. We get great prices for our bulk produce and our bulk food through them. And that way we're getting really healthy organic raw cheddar in even the simplest of recipes like enchiladas. If I wanted to make this super freezer burned safe, I would actually put the plastic wrap underneath the enchiladas and wrap it over the top. But since I know we're going to be eating these in the next handful of weeks, I'm not going super over the top with the protection of the meal itself because I know it's probably not getting freezer burnt. It's not going to be in there long enough. So I will do a layer of saran wrap followed by a layer of foil and write the instructions on top of the foil in case it's not me who prepares it. So it could be the girls, it could be my husband, but I want them to know exactly what the instructions are. And occasionally I will need to write, please remove saran wrap first so they don't bake it with the saran wrap. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm afraid one day it might. This next recipe is hands down one of our family favorites. I'm not gonna lie, and to know that I can make it ahead of time is gorgeous, okay? It's gorgeous. So I actually use the no boil pasta noodles. Again, we're cutting corners because this makes it easier. In addition to that, I use about a full jar of sauce per tray. Again, we're making 2, 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella, and a cup of ricotta, or in this case, I'm using goat cheese because it's what I have on hand. A 1/4 cup of diced yellow onion, a cup of bell pepper, and 2 cups packed baby leafy greens. Usually I use spinach, but they didn't have any at the grocery store. So I got a combo pack for this one. Who cares? We're making it up as we go along. But as you can see, we're really starting to pack the nutrients in here, right? Much like the enchiladas, you can use whatever protein source you want to, or you don't have to add a protein at all. For these, I'm going to be using locally sourced grass-fed beef because we're obnoxious like that. But also look at the color of this stuff. When you get local, fresh, grass-fed beef, it should be a lot more red and or pink in color. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's move on. Same thing that we do with the enchiladas. Start off the bottom of the tray with a little bit of liquid courage to make sure the noodles don't stick. That's gonna be about a 1/4 cup of sauce, followed by an even layer of the no-bake noodles. Feel free to break them to get them into place so it fits perfectly. You know me, I don't wanna leave a corner exposed. Layer on about 1/2 cup of each of the cheeses, the ricotta or goat cheese, if that's what you happen to have on hand, and mozzarella, followed by all of our vegetables. We're looking at about 1/8 cup of an onion, although I didn't measure that, I just eyeballed it. 1/2 cup of bell pepper, then about a cup of the spinach down next, followed by a 1/2 cup of the cooked ground beef as well. I cooked it off to the side. Sorry I didn't show that, but it's ground beef. Hopefully I'll be able to crack that code. And finish it off with a 1/2 cup of marinara. Now the middle parts of these layers don't matter as much, but you want the marinara sauce to be touching the noodles because that helps them to soften as they bake because that's where the liquid is coming from. So you always want to finish the top of your layer with marinara before you put the next layer of noodles down. Repeating exactly what we did the last time around, we're gonna go cheese, another cheese, vegetables, meat, more sauce, and then we get to the top where we take the rest of the marinara sauce and pour it over the lasagna noodles. Again, we need the moisture of these to help them cook. And then finish it off with whatever remaining cheese you have left. It's also delicious if you decide to top it with Parmesan or with basil or with both. It is mwah, chef's kiss. I just didn't have either one of those on hand. 10 out of 10 recommend doing that though. We are gonna wrap these up the same exact way we just did with the enchiladas, with the saran wrap down first to create more of an airtight barrier, followed by the foil on top, simply because the saran wrap by itself is not really hardy enough to stand up, at least to the abuse that the casserole dishes will receive in my freezer. Yours might be a little bit more tame, but it's a dog-eat-dog world in this frozen neck of the woods. Now, note in the recipe cards linked below that there's going to be 2 different cook times. There's going to be a much shorter cook time if you're baking this directly from scratch, which I totally recommend. If you're feeling tired after making a bunch of meals, make an extra one or use one of the ones you've made to feed yourself that night. You have absolutely earned it. But it will have a much shorter cooking time than if you have frozen it. If it's frozen, either let it defrost in the fridge overnight or plan for an extended baking time. I'm talking like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Remember, we are doing these make-ahead meals for those busy nights, so just don't forget that you'll need to put it in the oven a lot sooner than you think, especially if you haven't defrosted it overnight. And when you're getting ready to make these, be sure to hang on to that piece of foil because you're gonna actually want to put that back on top when you are baking to keep the cheese protected, get all nice and melty and bubbly, and then pull it off in the last few minutes to get it that gorgeous, gorgeous, toasted, warm, golden brown. I'm telling you guys, once you try this, it is absolutely addicting, okay? Once you discover the power of make-ahead meals, you're gonna wanna be doing it all the time. In the span of this video, in the last however many minutes we've spent together, I ended up making 4 whole meals. So last few parting tips for you before we end this video. Whenever you're doing make-ahead, always double whatever you're making if you can. If you've got room in your freezer, do it. I took a page out of Acre Homestead's book on this one. I wish I knew her first name. I forget her first name. But she actually goes to Goodwill and purchases Pyrex dishes to freeze her meals in those. I love this idea because I prefer for our meals to not be stored in aluminum and I don't want to be using disposable aluminum trays. If I can just buy a couple extra 9x13s from Goodwill once and reuse them over and over again, yes ma'am. Do not skimp on this saran wrap foil situation. The absolute worst is pulling out a freezing meal only to see that it's freezer burnt. And if you can, come up with a couple of sides. Again, beans and rice, salad and bread to stretch the meal a little bit further. But if you lack the energy and you can't, know that you have a complete delicious meal ready to go. Be sure to snag the recipe cards in the description box below. Hit that subscribe button if you have not subscribed already. I've got 2 more meals coming out, and that is going to be Italian sausage soup, super nutrient dense with a bone broth and plenty of vegetables, but also a protein to make sure we feel nice and full. And my infamous chicken pot pie. No one's ever called it that, but I'm calling it that. We are obsessed with chicken pot pie. And in the next installation of this series, I will be making, I think, 6 meals in one video. So make sure you ring the bell for that one so you don't miss the notification when that gets uploaded because, again, going for nutrient-dense, healthy meals to feed you and your baby postpartum to feed your family during busy seasons. If we can carve out an hour or 2 of time when we have the space and the energy to do this, you will thank yourself later. I'm telling y'all, it's addicting, okay? And I need you to join me in this. Okay. Oh, and if you have suggestions for other make-ahead meals, let me know in the comments down below. Let's help each other out. If you're here, if you're looking for make-ahead meals, you need all the options you can get. Am I right? Okay. And until next time, bye guys.